Welcome back. Today we are talking kinetic ropes. We're going to go through a little bit about what they are. I'm going to talk about the pros and why you should buy a good one. I'm also going to talk about the cons and some times where there might be some other devices like traction boards or a winch. Got my stand-in right here. That might be a better option than this for a vehicle recovery. And then if you stick around to the end, I've got a bonus tip of how you can maintain the life of this as long as possible and not damage it long before you really should. Stick around. Alright, like I said in the intro today, we're talking kinetic ropes. Basically the word kinetic comes from the fact that it stretches. When you start pulling on this with a vehicle, it stretches, it stores energy, and when it gets to the end of that stretch, it transfers that energy to pull the other vehicle out. Now in the interest of full disclosure, USA Ropes and Recovery, they sent this stuff over to me. No money changed hands or anything, they just sent it over for review. So that's about the extent of the sponsorship stuff today. This is going to be a stand-in for any type of kinetic rope you find. You can find these for fairly cheap on Amazon, and you can find some really expensive ones. There's different lengths, there's different weight ratings, so make sure you get the right one for you. But I would highly, highly encourage you to spend the extra money and get one from a reputable company. Not only are they more durable, which means they're going to last a whole lot longer, you're going to get a lot more use out of your money for it, but also USA Rope, they're made in the USA. So instead of supporting some giant Chinese corporation that's doing slave labor and all that, an American company keeping the money right here. Kinetic ropes are awesome for vehicle recoveries because it's way less violent and you run a lot less risk of damaging not only your equipment but also yourself. So what this does, like I was saying, it stretches. I'm not strong enough to stretch this because this is rated to pull a vehicle and I'm not that strong. But when you start pulling on it, it stretches, 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 gets to the end, and then it pulls on it. Kind of like a giant bungee cord, but for vehicles. This tree saver is going to be a stand-in for a normal tow strap. And that's all these are, toe straps. They don't stretch at all. And if you've ever done a recovery with one of these, you know that. As soon as you put pressure on it, it's very violent. It jerks you. It's, number one, not super comfortable if you're in the vehicle, if you're doing it really hard. And number two, you put a ton of strain on different components of your vehicle. So if you're using something like a tow hitch, which you never should, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, all of that force is going right on this ball. And unfortunately, there's been people that have been killed because this has broken off, turned into a cannonball, and yeah, I'll let you think about that. So, tow straps, hard on the vehicle, hard on the people doing it, and it doesn't allow you to get as much speed out of a run-up because you're a little bit worried about that. This, you're able to get a lot more speed because it's going to stretch a little bit, so it's not as violent. First time I used this, I couldn't believe it. It felt buttery smooth. I almost thought that it came unhooked somewhere and I wasn't pulling him. And I looked back and he was coming out of this mud pit behind me. The other thing with these is that it's a lot less forceful on your equipment. That new bumper that I put on the front of my truck, I was pulling somebody out at the off-road park. He had a strap already on. It was muddy. I didn't want to get out and get all muddy underneath this truck, so I just used that. Well, it actually bent that bottom bar on the bumper because it put all that force into it. Now, I'm not saying this wouldn't have bent it. I don't think it was very strong and meant for that, but this has a lot less likelihood of damaging your vehicle. So when you want to use one of these, they have these soft shackles. I've got two of them, and what you're going to do is you're going to find something on your vehicle that's nice and beefy. You're going to run this around it, and then you're going to take your rope and run it through the soft shackle. You're then going to put this monkey fist knot through here, just like that. And once you get it around, you're going to get it nice and snugged up. And there you go. That's all it takes. Now you've got it connected to your vehicle, connected to the rope, and you can run it to the next vehicle. The cool thing about these soft shackles, they're not metal. Okay, that kind of hurt actually. But there's no metal here. I'd much rather get hit with one of these, not going to go through a windshield, versus a tow ball, a D-ring shackle, something like that. So that's a big thing for me is I've tried to get every piece of metal out of my recovery gear. Yes, there's some times you do want metal, you do need it. That's one of the downsides of this is metal is definitely more durable than rope. But this is able to, it doesn't store the same amount of energy as metal does without getting into physics or anything, but doesn't store the same amount of energy, and it is a whole lot better if it does break, way less dangerous. So you're gonna take your soft shackle, put it around there, get this, and then get it nice and stretched out, and you're ready for the recovery. Sometimes where a recovery rope may not be the best bet, and something else like traction boards, like my this hand winch right here, or other methods, it'd be number one, you have to have another vehicle for this. This rope, you can put it around a tree all day, all that you want, it's not gonna do anything. So if you're going out by yourself, traction boards, a winch, something like that is definitely a better idea. I still carry this when I'm out by myself for the simple fact that I pretty much always see people. So I'm never gonna, it's such a remote area that I'm not gonna find somebody, or that I couldn't get to somebody. Even if, you know, another vehicle comes by, maybe they're not prepared, they don't have this, they don't have a winch, they don't have something like that. You can hook this up to your vehicle, their vehicle, and they can pull you out. Never done it with a side-by-side, but definitely with a tow strap, there's no way a side-by-side would pull my truck out. I'd be willing to bet, depending on how stuck I am, you could probably get pulled out by a side-by-side with this rope. Just by the way that the force is applied gently, and you get that kinetic stretch also that's helping to pull you out. Other potential downsides of this is they only come in certain lengths. So I think this is a 20, maybe a 30 foot, but that's the main lengths that these come in are 20 and 30 feet. Where a winch, you can get 100 or more feet on that drum, which lets you get way further out. So if you're stuck in the middle of a mud pit, you're gonna have to get another vehicle all the way down in there for this to work. Where a winch, you might be able to stretch that winch line all the way out, reach to a tree, reach to a whatever. So muddy, snowy, areas like that where you're stuck and there's a lot of space that you need to cover in between, maybe not the best bet. The other thing is this, if this is the only strap you've got and you have a winch, would not recommend using it as a tree saver. Would it work in a pinch? Probably. That's where something like this comes in really handy because it doesn't stretch. So you put this around the tree, you hook your winch or whatever else up to this, and that's it. Where this is gonna stretch a whole lot more while you're doing that. As I said earlier though, things to consider, please don't use a tow ball like this. I know it seems really convenient, just take this and loop it over, now you got it. Number one, it's pretty easy for that to slip off, but like I said, these come off fairly easily. So this one says it's rated for 5,000 pounds. Interesting, didn't know that, I thought it was rated for more than that. But even if it was 10,000, whatever, that is just weight on here, and that is not a harsh jerking movement like that. That is the truck pulling forward and the trailer coming with it, attached right here. When you put jerking forces on there, such as a recovery where you're driving forward trying to pull another vehicle out, that puts a ton of force here, creates a fulcrum, and these can break off. And it's happened. If you want to, there's some Google stuff with that. Not only those, but people using chains. Really any metal in your recovery gear is incredibly dangerous. So that's where these soft shackles are awesome. They're not that expensive, and it's way safer. So do not use these for recovery.
And now for that bonus tip I promised you. You spent a lot of money on this rope, you've gotten a lot of use out of it, but you don't want to have to buy a new rope every year or so. So the bonus tip is don't run over your rope. Now what I'm talking about, not necessarily like this, where the rope is just laying on the ground. Backing over that, maybe don't do it on cement, because that could damage the rope. But if you're on sand, snow, mud, just driving over a rope like this, it's just laying there, not that big a deal. The problem comes if you run over a rope like this. You can see that the rope is to the truck and back to the tire. So if you've pulled somebody out and then you're backing up, or you're the person that got pulled out, don't run over this, because when you run over that, you put a ton of tension on this, and you're going to stretch that rope. You're probably gonna, depending on how much you drive over it, if you really are carrying some speed and you back up over it, probably gonna break something, or you're just gonna stretch out that rope to the point where it's not really useful anymore. So don't run over your ropes. Make sure you check out this video here. I didn't have a Kinetic rope, but there were a couple times it would have come in handy, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to pick this rope up.